Welcome to Arguing Agile. I'm Brian Orlando. I've spent over 2 decades in tech, doing everything from QA to development to product management to founding a company, and I have absolutely no tolerance left for any process that doesn't aggressively descale a business and make us nimble and get us ruthlessly tuned in to the customer.
Hi everyone, I'm Om Patel, business agility consultant. I'm tired of watching leadership burn millions on framework cosplay while their actual decision making is stuck back in the 90s.
Oh, so today we're completely tearing down the Agile industrial complex, and so that we can strip business agility back to the absolute basics. We're just talking about pure business agility today.
Yeah, today we'll name the 5 absolute non-negotiable capabilities of real businesses. No buzzwords, no framework wars, just the organizational muscles you need to actually survive.
Welcome back to Arguing Agile. If this is your first time, welcome. Like and subscribe, because the majority of people that watch the Arguing Agile podcast on YouTube, about 75-80% are not subscribed. So we would appreciate if you get value out of this podcast to like and subscribe. With that being said, by the end of this episode, our promise to you is you'll be able to explain what business agility actually is to anyone in your organization, up and down to the CEO, all the way down to the brand new employee that just got hired yesterday. You'll be able to diagnose the 5 core capabilities that we have just the two of us have decided are the 5 core capabilities of business agility. And you'll be able to tell how they're bottlenecking your company's revenue and speed, and hopefully will give you the confidence to push back confidently when leadership says, we have very mature business agility. We don't need any outside help or training or money, I guess.
Does that happen?
So real bottom line evidence is what I'm saying, rather than vibes.
Yeah, because vibes don't pay bills. Absolutely.
No, but they do code.
They do.
So I'm showing on the screen, these are the things that we're going to be touching today, which I already talked about. So unlike a normal podcast, I would like to start this podcast with kind of an overview, which we don't normally do for the purposes of pacing. But since this is a little more serious of a podcast, I want to start with the 5 pillars of business agility. When I do our Arguing Agile agenda planning, I have 5 sections that I like to shuffle the agendas under to make sure that we're not doing too much of one thing. Like sometimes we do too much product management, and then I'll tell you, I feel we've been doing a lot of product management. Let's do a team focused kind of thing, or let's do a customer focused or a leadership focused or something like that, right? What we'll do is we'll introduce those 5 categories, and I hope that you'll find them pretty bulletproof. But I will say, I am open to you pushing back to be like, hey, these are not great categories, or they're better, or maybe you missed a category or whatever. So what we're going to do is, before we start arguing, we have to plant the tree from which we've been swinging for the last 250 episodes. And I will plant that tree by saying there are 5 strategic capabilities that actually protect your bottom line when you are a business. Number 1, sensing and responding. This is market feedback loops. If you're a big fan of the lean startup, sensing and responding is for you.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is the backbone of product management right here. Is do something. Customers don't like it. If you don't get a signal, change it. Sensing and responding, which is funny because in terms of business agility, we said it's business agility. It's a giant umbrella, and all this stuff is under it. And then we just wrapped our arms around product management.
Yeah, we're not done with the 5, but yeah, that's where we started.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little thing that you might have heard of. It's called product management.
A little thing. Yeah.
All right. Speed to decision making. I call this in my other notes. I call this decision velocity. You might hear me say decision velocity better. I like speed to decision making better than decision velocity. You hear us talk on the podcast about the cost of delay. That's in this. If you ever heard us talk about John Boyd's concept of the OODA loop.
OODA loop, yeah.
Yeah, from the maybe the 50s or the 60s. I don't know when the OODA loop's from. I can't remember.
Must be the 50s, if not before then.
We've had a couple of podcasts where we talk about Jeffrey Bezos and his one-way door decisions versus two-way door decisions, that kind of thing. Decision velocity. Make a decision quick. Know what decisions that you can back out of and which ones you can reverse, right? And then the OODA loop on top of that is always be sensing at the same time. So you can, when you make a decision, you make it, and you got the best evidence you have at the time.
Yeah, and I think that brings me to a point where, with these 5, I should probably emphasize, these aren't working in isolation or not an a la carte menu. These can be applied in pretty much any order and to any degree. You can do more of 2 and less of 3, etc. It just depends on the organizational context that you come from.
Let's go on to the next one. Number 3 is structural flexibility. And this doesn't just have to do with flexibility, meaning this is not just like your work ethic or flexibility of processes or whatever. This is reorganizing the business to chase a new market opportunity without causing 6 months of internal HR chaos and power struggles and department reorgs and, basically disabling your organization. Being like Amazon cutting 30,000 jobs and basically completely disabling decision making for a period of time. Or the what's the Twitter guy's Block? What's the Twitter guy that just fired half his company? Sorry, the Twitter guy. I can't remember his name. Jack Dorsey?
Dorsey, yeah.
Yeah, Jack, or the recent Jack Dorsey firing at like 40% of the employees at Block. I brought Block up because there's a lot of like high profile people that really believe in Jack Dorsey.
Sure.
And I can't stop but thinking when we ran into this structural flexibility category of, this seems like a person who says, and honestly, if he said this, he would get a lot more credit from me of, AI is, it seems to me that it's transforming the way that tech workers work. And I don't know how to train my employees, and nobody here, none of my other executives know how to do it. So we're just going to fire half our employees and then give the rest of the employees a lot more money to buy their own AI tools. And hopefully we'll figure out how to evolve our work to the next level, right? I'm going to fire half my employees and let the other half self-organize into a better structure. I almost wanted to redo I didn't want to, because once I edit a podcast, it's not going to happen, but I almost wanted to redo our AI in the workforce podcast that we did with specifically on the Block situation, to look at it to say, am I wrong saying that like the CEOs are just cutting using AI excuse because Jack Dorsey seems to be cutting using AI as an excuse, yes, but he's saying use these new tools to figure out how to be more efficient and faster and better at your work. The other things that didn't make it into the media with the Block layoffs were they gave everyone that stayed like 100% salary bonus. They double everyone's salary. That's it. So it's not like they saved money doing that.
No, but it put them in the news, which might have been one of the, the agendas here. True. And it put them among the select few that are actually, purportedly at least, benefiting from leveraging AI.
Yeah.
Right, at least on paper.
Yeah. I mean, if you read about old Twitter culture, it was the same way. They had a ton of coordination problems and all kinds of software problems and stuff like that. They never brought people into the organization to help them develop this structural flexibility muscle, knowing when our teams are not coordinating well enough, and then separating, basically breaking down and rebuilding the team structures to be able to coordinate better, to be able to own things better. They never figured it out. And he went and he developed a whole new company. They blew up to 10,000 employees, and they also didn't figure it out. So at some point, you have to step back and be like, is this a Jack Dorsey problem? Like that's where I came up to the edge of like, you know what, I'm just going to leave this alone.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
Because you're not allowed to like throw stones on Twitter at people like that to be like, maybe Elon Musk doesn't know what he's talking about. You're not allowed to say things like
you'll
that.
You'll find yourself blocked, removed.
Yeah, or something. Speaking of blocked and removed, the next category is distributed authority, which is decentralizing command and control. So you're going to stop paying six-figure salaries to middle managers, which we did a whole podcast about.
Oh, yeah.
The violent stoppage of stopping paying middle managers all of a sudden, just to pass messages up and down the chain and pushing the authority to the people that actually make the real day-to-day decisions and do the actual day-to-day work and actually have the data. But pushing authority down, that's distributed authority.
Absolutely. This is the stuff that David Marquette talks about.
Correct, yes.
You know, move authority to where the information is and not the other way around.
That's probably the most pertinent book on the subject.
Absolutely agree. It's a fantastic book. I think, unfortunately, the model that he is promoting is not very common out there. You know, and it goes back to the stuff that we talk about frequently on the podcast. You know, there's a lot of items that we talk about that emanate from the root cause of having bad org design.
Yeah.
And this is part of that as well, right?
I think I want to challenge you though, because I think the model is common. The issue is the amount of bad organizations to good organizations is like 95% bad.
So you're saying the numbers, but is it common to have people have the authority where the information is, or is it more common to have authority living up in the ivory tower in being fed status reports?
If you had the magic wand to be able to survey every employee in every organization, but like every organization, like private, public, everything,
yep,
across the whole world, I think you will find the most elite, most effective organizations. That is their de facto standard. Because I know for a fact, because I've read so many of the Jocko books, and we did the Jocko book on the podcast, Extreme Ownership. We did that with Ed in the Extreme Ownership book. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin talk about distributed authority, pushing the decisions down to the unit commanders. Because when you're removed from the fight and you're back in HQ or something like that, some secured area or whatever, and you're far away from what's actually happening, you can't be playing armchair quarterback. You've got to let the people doing the thing make the calls. And so every elite organization, I would posit. I used that last podcast too. I was so annoyed with myself in the editing. I would posit.
You can't say it with a straight face.
I can't. It's so good though. It's such a dime store word.
You're saying that model is very prevalent.
I would suspect that model is prevalent in all of the most elite organizations.
There's not a lot of them, is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
So that means it's not that prevalent in the industry. If there's not a lot of them, and only a few of them are actually exhibiting this behavior, it's not prevalent.
I understand what your challenge is, but there are only a few companies that are dominating the world.
Right.
So, like, on one hand, I understand what you're saying. Hey, it's difficult. On the other hand, it's difficult, but also, like, there are very few players at the number one spot. But I would guess that all the players at the number one spot, they got this. They got this.
Maybe.
Solid maybe. Solid maybe. And then the last category is learning orientation. This is continuous evolution. And also, every company that doesn't feel like they want to train their employees fails at this one. Every company that doesn't want to continually look at the way they're structured and their processes and do retros and actually do wholehearted retros, they fail at this one. The executive angle is failing cheap versus failing expensive is what I'm talking about in this category. Treating the market as R&D versus doing your R&D before you get to the market, right? Because we could put money into this and have this team be testing constantly or whatever, but that team is showing, they're a cost center, right? Why bother having QA? They're just a cost center.
That's right. That's what the customers are for.
I don't know. Maybe because we look like crap in front of them. We look like a bunch of clowns in front of the customer with a bunch of stuff that falls over and fails all the time.
But by the time that all hits the fan, I'm going to be long gone as Mr. Executive. So get on with it, Brian. Right, get back to your keyboard. This is so true. If you're not learning as an organization, fearlessly exposing everything there is to say, you don't really have a good learning orientation, right?
Right.
And there's so much depth to this. That kind of goes back to psychological safety.
Sure.
The work that Amy Edmondson's done in her books and her TED Talks, etc.
And the funny thing about psychological safety is, like, these categories, you don't need to be a pinnacle of psychological safety to also have all these categories. But I would I would posit.
Again? You're positing twice in a podcast.
I'm positing all over the place. I have a problem, is what I'm saying. Where's Mike Miller at again?
I'm going to reach out to him about that then.
I'm showing these categories again on the screen. I would posit that you can do some of these without complete and total psychological safety, but just looking at the categories, not many of them. Not many of them. I mean, it's kind of a prerequisite.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I'd also say, if you're looking at these and you're in an organization where you're trying to move the needle, why do people keep moving needles? Look at these and map out where your org is with respect to each of these, right? Because starting from somewhere is the key, and you don't know where that is. So just map these out. Pick a scale, any scale, but use a scale consistently. And then once you've mapped this out, do things, come back to that same set and re-evaluate where you've got to.
Yep.
Are you moving in the right direction?
Yeah. All right. So if you're a director or VP, someone with a budget right now, right? Mentally, just you don't have to write anything down. There don't have to be any evidence that you were even here. Rate your company 1 through 5 on these categories, these 5 categories that we just outlined. Go back, rate your company 1 through 5. Okay. You might have an amazing product and engineering function in your business, but if every decision needs to go through this 12-week business case decision panel with all kinds of information and research, and you have to wait for a decision, you have to go back and forth rounds with that panel to clarify things, like your decision velocity is killing your potential market share.
So this is not a new framework to buy.
No.
Right? It's a diagnostic tool to say our teams are not slow. Our governance is broken here. Right? So that means we can then argue about the right fixes.
Right. All right. So we talked about the 5 pillars. Now that we have the 5 pillars out on the table, the way that I think about business agility, let's start where most companies bleed cash. They confuse we're doing agile with we are agile.
Yeah. Yeah. Performative versus actual. Yeah. Okay.
Everyone wants to tell their board we're agile. Or actually now in the age of AI, it's, we don't need agile anymore. We're way faster than that. We're way faster than what the agile folks say. But this is like compared against the old school, you ran out and ran to your IT department and did something. Agile was a function of your IT department, right? Because your thinking was very siloed in the organization.
And even they weren't very agile, by the way.
But in the halls of, quote, high maturity companies, most companies are out there still getting crushed by more agile competitors. Most big companies are still terrified of the single digit number of employee companies that come into their market space and just destroy them, or the Googles of the world that can break off an unlimited amount of cash, don't ever need to be profitable, just break off a team and say, go sink this whole market and just acquire the whole thing.
Yeah.
We haven't heard a lot about Google invading someone's space in probably 8, maybe 10 years. But it was a regular thing at Google. So are we doing agile theater, or do we actually have business agility?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. A lot of teams will believe that they're agile because they're doing the mechanics.
So I've got the BCG study that's referenced here. It says why companies get agile right. Oh, that is interesting. Why companies get agile right and wrong. The BCG study from 2024. That's there's no date here of when the study. Oh, I can download the article. That's probably better than looking at it on this terrible site.
You can't scroll. It has very low scrollability.
So in the takeaways category at the top of this BCG study, as much as I trust BCG to tell me about agility, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, because I'm turning over a new leaf on this podcast. So their takeaways, their dare I say executive summary, says an in-depth research with 127 companies worldwide found that almost all, 94%, had embarked on agile initiatives, with 2/3, 66%, claiming successful agile transformations. So there you go. Our velocity is within reach We are successfully transformed. Your services are no longer needed.
Nice.
There's a door. Don't let it hit you.
I like it. I like it.
But when asked which Agile practices they applied and what outcomes they achieved, only about half, 53%, said they had realized their transformation targets and created lasting change in their culture, ways of working, and ways of teaming. And the other half, 47%, thanks BCG, because I couldn't take the other half of 53%, are operating under the illusion of agility. They adopted the practices and are claiming some success, but are not reaping the benefit of improved performance. That's their executive summary section.
And they don't have any pictures. I like pictures.
No, here we go.
Oh, there's pictures. Yay.
One of the ones is companies that achieved at least moderate success score of more than 50 versus those perceived themselves as successful. And the gray here is perceived success. And I'm guessing against actual success. So if this is like 91%, is this percentage? 91% perceived that they were successful, but BCG is saying, no. Like about 30 of that are not actually successful. They're just cosplaying successful companies. They're putting on the glasses and a mustache disguise and pretending to be
Groucho Marx.
Yeah. I'm not saying I believe in BCG. I just wanted to point out, even BCG is pointing out how bad some folks are out there about claiming to be in line with business agility. I think that's the core of what I'm pointing out here is the against in this category. If we're going to go back to our agenda on the podcast and fall back into form, most people are going to say, listen, we follow the Scrum Guide. We tick the boxes. We're highly mature. Agile that stuff is just for the software development teams. We send our people on the software development teams for certifications. They got the certs. They did the practices and we check the boxes.
Great. So we have all of these illusory measures of agility, basically, right? They have stand-ups. They talk about story points. They're agile. Yeah. Nice.
I said that's the against. Hey, we follow the Scrum Guide.
Yeah. Right. And the second bullet, so true. I see this a lot of the times. Oh, that agile stuff, it's for software teams. It's for software people. We don't do software here. We're HR or finance or legal. Right. Yeah, but, you still operate in a certain way which could benefit from some of the concepts of agility if you can implement some of those things in the ways of working. We're probably just about to flip over to the other side now for the fours, right? So the first one, ceremonies without business outcomes, is agile theater. It's a puppet theater. We're simply saying we're agile because we're doing all of these things. It makes you feel good, right? These are the people that dress up every morning in their costumes and go to the gym, and swing by Dunkin' Donuts on the way back.
Yikes.
Because hey, they're getting fit. They're doing things. They're doing healthy. I mean, if you can do healthy.
When I read about Agile, if I'm on Reddit or other random places on the internet.
Hey, that reputable source, Reddit, of course.
This is the stuff that people are talking about. They're talking about the fake Agile practices. They're talking about the Agile theater out there. They're talking about the watermelon status reports out there of, we're on track. Our velocity is great. But then the actual business value delivered, basically any product management metric is, way off. I guess category one here is like agility is a bottom line capability versus a process. Is most people just get wrapped around the axle in the process, and they never even get the sad part is they never even get to the underlying the real benefit of any of this.
It's hard to get to the real benefit if you're going to stop short and say, hey, we conform and comply to practices, basically, and that's it.
When I worked at a company that intersected with the public sector, right? We worked a lot with the DoD, not-for-profits, so NGOs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In the government space, apparently, they don't want their users to talk to like private companies, like representatives from private companies. So they try to gate off the back and forth conversations to certain people. Oh, well, you have to talk to this person. They're the only people that are authorized to talk outside of our, unit or whatever, right? And I'm like, okay, if you want to, but I'm just trying to do cool stuff over here. I'm accepting feedback from anyone. And especially when you try to set up a site visit to be like, I'm just going to kind of breeze through your work center and just like see how you use our software to see like what I can improve. But there are people that I wish I could have on the podcast to talk about like when I started working at the company versus when I stopped working at that company. It was just night and day of when I started working there, it was like, oh no, you have to go through the gatekeepers. You absolutely have to go through these people if you want to, otherwise nobody's ever going to talk to you. Whereas at the end, it was like, there's so many people that want to talk to you. There's so many people that want to talk to you on a day-to-day basis. You're disappointing everyone by not being available all the time. There's only one of me.
Right.
Or there's only so many of our team members, and, we can be on different calls. But anyway, when you constantly push in that direction of we should be talking to the customers, we should be partners in developing and creating and delivering the software, and you keep pushing that for several years, eventually you get to the point where you don't even recognize like where you started from. You can't believe that just 2 years ago we couldn't even get a meeting with these guys, and now every week they're calling us saying like, why haven't you guys come back or whatever.
Yeah. It is. So one of the things that I've noticed is, having worked in this space for a bit, initially it feels like you're pushing water up a hill with your bare hands.
Sure.
But if you keep this up, right, eventually you start to see a difference. The key there is to have that negative feedback loop in place, right, where you're making a difference and then evangelizing that, saying, look, if you do this, this happens. You agree, this is good for everybody, right? So let's do some more. And then you start to build credibility within the company. So it's hard unless there's buy-in from the top, in which case it's them saying, hey, this guy's doing this, it's working. You guys need to do it. That's different than you telling your peers to do it.
That's a different podcast. Buy-in from the top versus buy-in from the bottom. Mm-hmm. And the ideal is...
And sell-in from the middle.
And you can step in here to tell me if this is true or not. I feel as an Agile coach, the winning strategy is you want to attack both, the like buy-in from the top and buy-in from the bottom, and let the customer meet in the middle to tell you that, like, oh, everything you were telling us, everyone agrees is right. And I can only imagine, like, your face would say, like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's a trifecta. So, yeah, from the top, from the bottom, and then the middle, they're selling out. They're saying, we've got away with it thus far. We didn't need it.
No.
You get them around.
No, we fired all the middle people. Sorry.
Yeah, I did that, remember?
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk takeaways. Stop measuring meeting compliance. Start measuring time to market and cost of delay. When I say meeting compliance, I of course mean velocity and the Scrum and the scaled Scrum meetings and that kind of thing. Like, I don't care about any of that. I don't care about any of that. I care about time to market. I care about cost of delay.
Yeah.
I also care about learning velocity, but that's not on here because it's a little advanced concept for category 1 in the podcast. But I care about that too.
Yeah, I think if you stop short at just the performative agile practices, this is what I was saying earlier, you've only just begun.
Right.
Keep going, right? At the end of the day, those aren't really the success criteria. And I think some of that was in that paper from what I glanced on the BCG paper.
Let's wrap this section up. Is your executive dashboard a watermelon? So, green on the outside, red on the inside. Red when you look a little deeper. That's right.
It's your fault for looking deep.
Oh no! I love blaming the victim. Oh, I love that on the podcast when we can say, like, you just didn't hustle hard enough.
That's right.
Let us know in the comments if we've not hustled hard enough. And then next up is why the tech world is fighting about all the wrong things. We're going to talk about that right now. Every fight that you see on LinkedIn or that I see on Reddit, because as we know, that's where I get all my news. I get all my news from whatever Mark Zuckerberg decides to feed to me while I'm agitated. Anyway, about Agile being dead or team topologies or whatever by Matthew Skelton and the other guy, like, it's actually just a fight about one of the 5 capabilities that we already brought up in this podcast. The problem is tech leadership is failing to translate this into a language that the business actually cares about.
One day you're going to remember Manuel Pius.
No, I remember Manuel Pius. Just the other guy.
Skelton.
Matthew Skelton's the other guy. Listen. When we did Arguing Agile 6-7, I reached out to those guys and they didn't respond. So
they were busy developing their second book.
We're looking at a study from 2019 Yeah, received 2019, accepted 2020. Yeah, from 2020, okay? It's called Organizational Agility, Ill-Defined and Somewhat Confusing, a Systemic Literature Review and Conceptualization by Anna Teresa Walter. It says, from a qualitative analysis, I identify 4 agility categories: drivers, enablers, capabilities, and agility dimensions. I found this study, and it's interesting because she digs way back in time. In 1982, agility was first mentioned in the business context as, quote, the capacity to react quickly to rapidly changing circumstances. The paper is too long for us to go into. I bring it up to say it's another source that points out, again here in this quote, there's a lack of conceptual frameworks that it intends to explain what agility in the organization means conceptually, how the categories work, and according to the latest findings, how the categories are interrelated. And like that's part of the reason that I wanted to have this podcast is some of the things that this paper is pointing out is like, hey, there's a lot of business cases here that are very important, but they're just not explained very well. Like even product management in and of itself could be considered a dimension of business agility. Of course, the product management folks are never going to agree to that. They're never going
Right.
to.
Their focus is elsewhere.
We're special.
Right. Yeah, everybody says that.
Yeah, of course. So, but the arguments here that you're going to hear.
That's a good segue into the against, I think. The product management folks say, hey, we're special. We deal with challenges that people don't understand.
The argument here is going to be, hey, you're just dealing with tech buzzwords, like especially from the business side of it, where you're trying to push agility into the business. Although, like concepts like stand-ups and whatnot have like basically found their way into the nomenclature and the zeitgeist of normal business, where people have never even heard of agility, have no idea what it is, are doing daily stand-ups, and then the business they don't need to understand like Dora metrics and these things that you'll learn about in a 2-day quote Agile class. Well, listen, we're figuring out the best way to do things, right?
Yeah,
right?
Too busy doing our day-to-day to worry about learning all these things because, we're doing fine.
That's right.
We're doing fine.
That's right.
We're agile. So on the other side of the fence, on the 4,
yeah,
if you can't tie a technical change to one of those 5 capabilities that we put on the board earlier, the business won't fund it. That's the 4. Or shouldn't, I should say. Shouldn't fund it.
Let's see. The other thing here is that platform engineering is just structural flexibility. Two-way door decisions is just decision velocity. We have a takeaway here. It's clunky. Let me get through it, okay? Because again, we have a lot of ground to cover here. It says map all of your scattered initiatives. By initiatives, I mean you're trying to improve the business. You internally use that mapping to explain to the CFO why, quote, more agile is not what you're shooting for. What you're shooting for is increasing the business capabilities, the capabilities of the business in which we have built together.
Right.
It is more capable and more capable in these ways. And then your CFO will say, well, what does more capable mean to the bottom line? And then you will say, what the hell are you asking me? That's your job.
That's your job, exactly.
Your job, dude.
I think another way to kind of frame that is to increase the resilience the organization has. And part of that, you're saying increase resilience, so what do you mean? Part of that is also improving the ability to sense and respond quicker to changing stimuli from all and sundry.
Sure.
Right?
I mean, that's one capability, sure, but like the list of 5 drivers here, sensing and responding, speed to decision making, improving any of these is a business capability.
Yeah.
So if your CFO is asking, how does distributing authority affect our bottom line? I don't understand, Ohm. You need to put the nuts and bolts together. I don't know. Like maybe what they're saying there is I'm not very good with numbers. Can you please do my job for me?
Okay. So if you have a CFO who's not very good with numbers, where do you go from here?
Well, you get a new CFO is what you do.
Yeah, or get AI to replace your CFO.
I mean, we're only one Twitter post away from starting the revolution over here. Listen, all I'm saying is we have some of our countrymen in the Bastille, and there's a couple of us with pitchforks, a couple of us with torches. You have these 5 categories of business agility, and within these categories, again, if we're all one team, I would hope that your financial folks in the organization seeing these categories, should be able to fit their operations into the categories, rather than say, well, why would you spend time sensing and responding to the market? There's no spreadsheet item for sensing and responding to the market.
Yeah. Hopefully at the right level they can understand that, though, right? That these are critical things. Otherwise, there is no spreadsheet.
I would hope, but also experience has taught me.
Yeah, right.
Hope is not a strategy. That's what I'm saying right now.
Absolutely.
This is a good mile marker for us to say, how did we get here? How did we get here to the point where most people in the business don't understand that we have to work on the business to improve the business at some point? And if you're saying, I can't measure how you're improving our internal business process or team structures or team dynamics. I don't have a part of my spreadsheet for that. Therefore, it's not valuable. No. Like, again, the product manager in me, again, because remember, 20 years, and I'm the junior on this podcast. 20 years. I hear that, and I hear you don't know how to do those calculations. It sounds like you've got some learning to do. Can you please help the rest of the business? Rather than, because I don't know how to do these calculations, it is like the net value is zero.
Yeah, it's a fruitless exercise.
That is incorrect. The net value is not zero. Okay?
Just because you don't understand the value.
That is correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess what we're saying in this section is, which of the 5 capabilities is your biggest bottleneck? If finance is not helping you to make that determination, then, oh boy, like, it's going to be way more difficult. Like, they really should be helping you with this.
They should, but one thing you could do, though, is to lead with evidence. Bring in the data, because agility actually works well if you don't fake it.
Yeah, a lot of things work better if we're both being genuine in our human relationship with one another. That's what I'm saying, Om. Let's all be helpful and try to be rowing in the same direction on this boat that we're in together.
Oh boy, if only there was an easy way to get to that point.
Yeah, there's an easy way. I just point and be like, the hole's in your side, Om.
Perfect.
Better shovel that water
That's
out
right.
faster.
Yeah.
Why are you shoveling water? That's weird.
I don't know, but do it faster because the hole's on your side.
Do it faster.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that for sure.
It's your fault the boat is sinking, though. So which of these 5 capabilities that we talked about is your and your company's biggest bottleneck? Let us know in the comments. Now on the podcast, let's bring in data, because agility actually works when you stop faking what you're doing. So across hundreds of studies, true business agility is linked to massive financial outperformance. Then why do so many executives and leaders that I've met think that, quote, Agile is just a 2010s buzzword?
$1 million question right there.
Cutting straight into the against in this section. There's no ROI in Agile, number 1. And number 2, Agile is just stuff for tech people, right? We're highly regulated. We don't need, we can't use that. Or we're an HR department, or we're the executive team, or whatever. We can't use any of that. And also, like, we're Capital One. We
fired everybody who could say the word Agile.
We fired all the Agile people.
Yeah.
The developers can do that now.
Right. I mean, both of these points are rooted in, I think, one particular idea, which is a complete misunderstanding of what Agile really is all about. Right. Didn't improve our ROI, but what were you actually measuring? What were you doing, first of all? What were you measuring? How are you linking performative Agile that you're doing with what's on your bottom line?
Oh, allow me to step in again.
Please.
We tried Agile almost always at these companies. Means we bought Jira and we hired some entry-level folks and called them Scrum Masters. And then we didn't change how we fund our, quote, projects.
So you still have your annual budgets.
And then we were unhappy with the results. And when you align your business capabilities with strategy, your business strategy, I'm talking the highest level folks in the organization, the people that set your business strategy, you're going to find out that you go to the moon with your financial returns at that point. When your capabilities, meaning what my business can do, is aligned with my strategy, what we should do, those things together. Okay, that's my definition of business agility. And when you find out that either a capability is not right or a strategy is not right, you look at the data, you figure out why, you have a real a real adult conversation about why, and then you do a shocking thing, Om. You adjust.
Yeah, I mean, it's your execution of your strategy where the flaws may lie, right? Strategy looks great on paper, but yeah, I agree. So if you're thinking that, you've got everything lined up right and you're ready to succeed with Agile, but you're not seeing the results, you could possibly just very easily hide behind what you just said, which is we've been doing Agile for 3 years now. We have teams that do stand-ups and all of these things. But yeah, at the core, you're still not really Agile because you have these annual budgets. You're not thinking product, you're thinking projects. Nobody pays for a project. Customers pay for product. So yeah, there's a misalignment in at least one of your capabilities and strategy.
We have a podcast on this topic, by the way. It's called Agile Doesn't Work Here. It's Arguing Agile 83.
Whoa, that's a while ago.
It was a bajillion years ago. It was Arguing Agile 83 is from October 14th, 2022.
Whoa, 2022 was a bazillion years ago.
Just looking through the chapter markers here, you don't want to have dedicated teams. You don't align your incentives. Your sales and incentives are disconnected. You have middle managers that are washing out for themselves. You've got the fear of failure in your organization, so you don't talk about, you don't talk openly about, you've got ego, you're not leading with vision. I mean, the chapter markers here are very telling about, why you would say, Agile doesn't work here. We tried Agile once on the back of the napkin, half-heartedly, without putting any money behind it.
Yeah, and I'd say a lot of these same people are the ones now rearing their heads saying, Agile's dead. It's not the people that have found Agile to succeed because they invested in it.
I'm glad you're going down this road, Owen, because if your leadership declared that Agile doesn't work here, but then structurally didn't change anything about the organization, didn't listen to the opening 5 minutes of this podcast where you outlined the five pillars here.
Right.
I mean, they're very busy. They can't listen to more than 30 seconds of, clickbait on HBR or whatever.
Sure.
If this is your leadership, let us know in the comments. That's what I'm saying.
And keep that resume updated.
Oh, you might as well, because if you're letting us know in the comments, everyone in the C-suite wants AI strategy. An AI strategy, we need to have an AI strategy, but here is the reality. AI doesn't magically fix broken business models. It acts as a stress test that amplifies whether you already have agility or it aggressively exposes how bureaucratic your organization really is.
It's a mirror, effectively.
Oh, no. And what do we know about mirrors, Ohm? We know if you don't like the mirror, you just break the mirror and get a new mirror.
That's right. That means you'll transform into a prince or princess right away.
Oh, I thought you... a frog? I don't... Sorry, I got confused. I forgot.
You're already a frog, right? I presume?
I forgot.
I like my green costume, and I don't want to hop on a call with you.
To introduce this category, we're going to pull up the Business Agility Institute 2025 study. So we're looking at the Business Agility 2025 report. It says, and I quote, AI does not create an advantage on its own. It amplifies the organization in which it's embedded. In companies with strong business agility, AI accelerates learning, innovation, and value creation. In those without it, AI exposes structural friction, leadership gaps, and brittle decision systems at speed. This report is a goldmine, by the way, and we can probably stay on this for quite a while. We're not going to, because again, I'm trying to keep this podcast under an hour.
Sure.
We'll see how I do with that. But this Business Agility Institute 2025 report, I can only imagine what it's going to say for 2026. But if I'm going to argue against it, the arguing points will be, hey, AI replaces the need for quote Agile or any Agile positions or whatever you call them, playing the role. Like AI can play the role. I can have a Scrum Master chatbot, right? And also, hey, we just need to buy Copilot for everyone, and we'll be 40% faster. And being faster because we're supplemented with AI tools means we don't need to worry about this business agility stuff, right?
Oh yeah, that's it. Sign me up. I mean, this is exactly what we heard some time ago when people discovered Agile was the right way to do things. Like, well, we don't need Agile. We've been doing things this way, So now we're saying, well, AI replaces Agile, right? Agility is dead. And we just need to buy tools for people to get there faster. Get where? Where are we going? Are we going there because we mean to go there? Is that the right place to go? No, it doesn't matter about all that. Just get there quick.
Yeah, but listen, Sam Altman is not going to get money if we don't give him all of our token money.
This is true.
And fast. That's what I'm saying. He's looking for a man in finance. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying. Oh, man. What are we talking about?
Now we're in the fours.
So if you're looking at this section that we're talking about critically, and you're saying, oh, our decision velocity, it's really slow. Okay, AI can help us accelerate that. It can read a 40-page document in the snap of a finger.
Yeah, it can help you generate a 40-page document in the snap of a finger as well.
Oh, it can read it too.
And it can read it, and it can summarize it for you, right? But what's in it? Like, where did that come from? Did it just dream up that stuff?
I mean, some of it maybe, yeah. Did it get the right takeaways? I don't know, maybe. These are the things that you have to trade off with regard to speed. So, I mean, I guess if that's your, speed is the number one concern, I guess, if that's what you're saying. As a product manager, I'll go with you on that. I've gone with executives on a lot less than the technology is really fast.
Yeah, I mean, sure, right. I agree. I think this is a weak point, though, still.
Yeah, well, you're probably saying it's a weak point because my next question is going to be, is it correct? And you're going to say, what are you worried about that for?
Yeah.
Why are you hassling me?
You're slowing me down.
It's fast.
Quick. Yeah. You're slowing me down by raising all these questions.
Right.
Yeah. So another 4. AI without structural flexibility gets stuck in legal and compliance pilots forever.
Well, you don't need that when you have an army of lawyers on your side that you pay. That you pay basically the salary of an entire army.
To do that, you do have to lay off most of your staff.
Right, yeah. At that point, you have to ask yourself what business you're in. If you're in the business of making what you're doing legal, ex post facto, basically, we're downloading a torrent of all the books and feeding them to your AI. So your AI is now trained on all of the books ever written, and you have to have your lawyers back up. Is that legal? Yeah, I guess you need to pay a lot of money to a lot of lawyers if you're doing things like that are what most folks would say is sketchy.
Just stay above water. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, sketchy. I'm going to download all music ever released on an album, feed it to my music making AI as training data, and now I can produce any music I ever want. That's not illegal, I guess.
Listen, AI artists are going to be winning some of these music awards real soon. There's an article on TV I just watched a couple of days ago where they're saying how the next Grammy would be won by an AI actress.
I hope so. Listen, it's about time AI actresses...
I wonder if the AI actress is going to be humble accepting their award.
I hope so.
I'd like to thank the Academy and all my tokens.
There may have been an edit here because Brian got too sassy for the free version of the podcast. Just want to seed that. I want to seed that ground right now. The takeaway here, treat AI as a mirror for your C-suite. Do you know why I'm saying that, Om? Because in the future, AI is going to be your C-suite. Because the people that take all the evidence that you've brought them and the context that you brought them and make a decision based on that is my dying wish. That's what I'm saying right now. Is that we finally, as a society, realize what AI is really, really good at.
So we're about to trade places with it.
It's really good at, you do the research and you give me all the context, and I will help you make the best decision that you could have done. Like a really good C-suite person would do, who's going to ask you questions and say, you're bringing me this question. You want me to make a decision. I'm going to help you make the decision by asking you a bunch of questions, examining your evidence, really holding your feet to the fire, and then asking you what you really recommend, right? Yep. Why you recommend it, and then helping you come to the right decision. And boy, if there's a single AI use case that I've heard all year that is like top tier, AI C-suite.
You know who this is going to help the most?
No, who?
Those people who are in the non-AI C-suite are unable to make decisions, no matter how much evidence you give them. There are some of those people. They're ego-led. Whatever you tell them, that ain't right, because you told them that was the right thing to do. So they're going to tell you something else. And when it fails, not if, it's your fault.
Well, I hate to tell you, but if your AI adoption is stuck, if your business agility is stuck, if your ability to evolve the business beyond certain people because of their personal failings is stuck, you don't have a business agility problem. You have a personnel problem. And again, we're back to the heart of business agility. You've got problems. The business agility will make those problems transparent. And then it's your choice to deal with them or not deal with them, to live with the consequences. And sometimes living with the consequences means like blaming people and like doing some bad behaviors to try to mask what we know the real problem is.
Yeah.
But again, like after 20 years of doing this, it just keeps coming up. It's like once you don't deal with the problem, it bubbles over and it becomes a problem all itself. If you skip the thing that you should have dealt with enough times, eventually, like it'll be so undeniable that you need to deal with it that you have to stop what you're doing and deal with it.
Yeah, you just can't put it off anymore.
It's a big problem.
Yeah,
it's a big problem. So it's not a business agility problem. It's a people problem, and the people in your organization that deal with those problems should be the people at the top. Should be.
Absolutely. And when AI runs your business, it's going to be...
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, because when AI runs your business, it will not dilly-dally around. It'll attack the problem straight on.
Sure, because it does it
very
quick.
And that's how you get Terminator 1, I believe, the first Terminator movie. I'm just saying.
Oh, boy. On that somber note, what's our call to action? AI acting like a superpower at your company, or a mirror showing your bureaucracy? Tell us in the comments below. Finally, how do we avoid turning this into another consulting scam? Glad you asked.
I got more, unlike other podcasts, I got more excited the longer we went on this podcast. We're ending this episode on the biggest lie in the enterprise world today. So I'm glad you could be here, because this is the biggest lie. The biggest. The idea that you need to scale agility by buying a massive, complex framework. But you and I both know, like, agility doesn't scale. Like, bureaucracy is what scales. If you want to move faster, you don't add more process. You just relentlessly descale the organization. You look for opportunities to break silos across into smaller units, cross-functional teams that knock out work. And oh boy, if there's a concept that a lot of people don't want to hear, it's this one.
It is this one. Yeah, I've not heard any consulting organization coming in to help a business say this. Not one.
If you want to hear people pedantically push back against this one, the against points here say, hey, what you're pointing out is just another framework. The descaling framework is a framework, just another framework that you're going to charge us $625 for a certification for. And and also, good leaders, they already do this without your 5 pillars and your Agile certifications and your Scrummy Scrums and your Jira and all that.
If they're doing it, why is it that you are up at night every day, Mr. Executive, right? Things will be hunky-dory for you. Clearly, there's a problem.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's other against points here that I held back in reserve because they're so good. They're so, and by so good, I mean terrible and useless and worthless. But, we're a massive enterprise. What you do at a startup has no bearing here. We're special, We're special. Nobody's 100, 200, 300,000 employees like us. We're so special.
So we need all these layered things.
That's exactly right.
To manage dependencies and get decisions made and reviews and all this sort of stuff.
Until we fire 30,000 managers, and then suddenly we don't. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But also we need standardization between our teams. Though we have a PMO, we need oversight over our 500 development teams. We need oversight. We need to know what they're working on. Sorry, I got one more, and then we need measurement across all of our quote agile teams, because otherwise we wouldn't know who's performing. Someone could be taking advantage of us.
You know what else I hear in that argument though is we've invested in agile, and we want to justify our investment.
I thought you were going to say non-family friendly.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Because we're at the end. Let's race through this one. Like that, I hear complexity is the enemy of speed. So if you're managing dependencies, you've got the wrong architecture. You've got the wrong architecture the wrong org chart, like you're starting all wrong. You need to break all that down. So you're starting with a big complex organization with a bunch of dependencies and red strings and all that. Okay, cut through all that and descale and decomplexify.
Ooh, that's a word. Decomplexify.
I don't think that's a real word.
Just avoid these dependencies in the first place.
Let's deal with it. That's the first thing that people are going to throw out. Is, we're special because, and then they'll throw all this extra stuff out that doesn't matter. The other one that I want to stay on for a second is you don't scale Agile. I actually do believe that. You don't scale, quote, Agile. Like you spend your time figuring out how to descale your orgs and break them up and figure out what is the bare bones of communication that needs to happen between teams. And then you strip away all of the business layers, all these 30,000 people that Amazon's laying off. Like you strip all that away to say what really needs to happen for these teams to communicate with each other. Like how many people do we really need? Because if you're hiring someone whose job it is to like assist with communications and coordination between teams, you should make it explicit of like that, like on the cell in the spreadsheet where they live. That's their job is this person, they grease the gears. They keep the machine working. That's their job. Once they stop applying grease, like, yeah, sure. You stop the guy pulling the levers, moving the assembly line, and just fire him and have nobody moving the assembly line. Things will probably be okay for a while.
Sure, till they're not.
Set your stopwatch, 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe an hour.
Right.
But like at some point, the assembly line will go out of control completely. Yeah. And then you'll be sitting there going, oh, why are the workers not running up to the assembly line and pulling the lever? I don't understand.
Yeah. And you're, of course, not there to even see or
no. You're just looking at the after on the spreadsheet. And then 6 months later.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I don't understand. So the only metrics that matter are time to market, cost of delay, customer adoption. Everything else becomes a vanity metric. I probably could be a little flexible on this viewpoint, but again, I'm coming at this business agility category from the product manager's viewpoint. And I should also point out, there's a lot of product managers out there that say, oh, the agility people, they've got nothing to help us with.
The problem with that statement is it's really when they say the agility people, because you're also part of the same population.
I thought you were going to say it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous also. All right. That would have been much quicker.
Yeah. I would say it's ridiculous, and you're a terrible person. And
go stand in the corner.
Yeah, go stand over there. So the takeaway here, number one, fire your vanity metrics. Like stop tracking them.
And all those that support them.
Somehow AI is not replacing any of the people that maintain the financial accounting spreadsheet of who gets fired and who. That's so odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so weird. So if your deck that you show to the board is talking about velocity or predictability, instead talk about your market share and your customer outcomes. Talk about those two. Because if you're not talking about those two, you are losing in terms of being running a good business. You're losing.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's nothing to argue there. Right? So, I mean, assuming that when you talk about these things, market share, customer outcomes, etc., these words don't fall on deaf ears. Yeah, people are so accustomed to hearing those vanity metrics. If they hear these other things, it will be like, bitter medicine to them. Oh, what's all this stuff now?
Right. The other one that I want to talk about is stop managing dependencies. You didn't know I was starting fights on the podcast, but I am. And everyone's catching strays today because stop managing dependencies. Just don't do it, period. A lot of product managers just had a conniption right now.
Yeah.
Eliminate them.
Right.
Structural flexibility is one of our main categories. And if you're not progressing structural flexibility, because, I don't know, it's hard to do this, and we got to reforge all of our communication lines and like teach people how to communicate better. And listen, I know it's difficult. I understand. But also, like, what are we doing with our lives?
Right. Okay? This is work. So, eliminate the ones you have now, and then in the future, avoid them.
Look at your approval processes tomorrow. If a decision requires more than 2 signatures, your business is bloated and it will not survive. Just want to throw that challenge out in case anyone sees it, hears it, feels it, and wants to argue about it on the internet. So I'm here you can feel free to write me in the comments and change my mind.
All right. Cool. What's
All right.
our CTA?
So are you actually speeding up, or did you just add a new layer of, quote, agile management? If anything in this episode made you uncomfortable, you're welcome, first of all. But second of all, like the point of this episode was to arm you with kind of the 5 categories that I think of, because again, they're more the me than they were of like the specific way that we categorize business agility. I wanted to bring them here just to talk about this: the sensing and responding, decision velocity, structural flexibility, distributed authority, and learning orientation. If you're not building these, then boy, you're on a path to disruption, and not the good kind.
Not the good kind, exactly.
Like we're going to disrupt the market like that. I wanted to point it out because there's not a ton of clarity on the internet about this kind of thing, or if you go searching on YouTube about what is business agility, divided from like, a bunch of Scrum stuff or people trying to sell you trainings or whatever. Like, I want to divide from that, talk about like, if you run the business, what does agility mean and why is it important? So I wanted to have a podcast that stood alone and address those things. And I think we've done a fair job at what I would say.
I'd give us a better grade than that, but you guys can decide. Please let us know down in the